need to get this filter working. So what I'm going to do is put this pump on, and I'm going to see how well the pump shoots up to the filter, because we need to find out how well the head height goes on this pump, considering we're restricted by the size of that pipe. The test seems quite successful. I've got the pump down there, and then I've got quite a good flow of water, so I'm very happy to see that. I think running up and down these stairs today will keep me nice and fit. So I've now installed the UV sterilizer there. I'd really like some sort of cover on that, if that's possible, whether it be a little wooden step or whatever you put over it, if that's possible, because the sun will deteriorate this plastic over time. And I'm not going to turn the UV sterilizer on yet, because I'm going to put lots of good bacteria and media for good bacteria in the filter. So I want the good bacteria to get into the filter before we turn the UV on. What the UV is for is keeping the pond clear. And right now we're not worried about the pond being clear, we're worried about good bacteria establishing in the filter. So in about a month we'll turn that on, and that will help keep the water clear. And the inside it is a UV tube. We want to replace that about once a year. Okay, so I'm quite happy with this water flow. This was sort of a best case scenario as far as this filter is concerned. I was worried because the pipe is not heaps thick, and I was worried about how much water flow I could put through this pipe with this much head, because this is up quite high. This water looks to be coming out quite nicely, and now it's starting to overflow back down into the pond again. This is starting to pump out quite nicely now. So as far as the flow for the filter is concerned, I'm basically going to call this a success, because putting more water through the filter doesn't necessarily make the filter more efficient. But what I do want to just flag is that if this is on all the time, then obviously you will get this sound, which we hope it doesn't affect anyone, neighbors or whatever. And this is going to put some nice oxygen in the water, because what's going to happen is the water's going to go from that pump. Now the other thing is, I really want that pump not to be on the bottom of the pond. So I want it on a brick or something. I don't want it on the bottom. I want it to pick up clean water. I don't want it to pick up all of the sediment. I'd rather we just have like a nice net, like a pool net, and scoop the sediment out on a semi-regular basis. And there's a nice deep pit here, which is actually really great, because that means that we could put a siphon in that pit and potentially run a nice long hose over there and use that to suck out any crap that's getting built up over time. So this is really quite a good pond to service. But I want to just say that if we don't have too many fish in here, I want to call this a success. If we start getting more fish, then what I would like is a second pump to be added, and the other pump is going to just shoot the water within the pond itself. And then what that will do is create what's called kinetic energy. Now, kinetic energy is where you use the movement of the water to create the movement of the water. So right now you can see this waterfall is actually working very well, and I'm very happy with the waterfall, but it's not going to create the body of water to move. So if I had my way, I would get a second pump, probably in a wasa. I'd put it in the corner and aim it. I'd want it to get a bit of surface agitation and move the water around. And that way I'd have the movement of the water creating the movement of the water. Now that kinetic energy will become very important if you have a lot of fish. If you do not have a lot of fish, it is not so important. If we put, say, a couple of turtles in here, or decent sized koi, then this is going to be beautiful. If we're going to get more and more stock, then we do want to add more water flow. That can become a future problem. In the meantime, providing this pump can run 24/7, I'm actually quite happy. Is a pool net, and just go around and scoop the leaves out on a semi-regular basis, because the less rotting material we can have in the pond, the better quality our pond will stay. So there's obviously a green leafy environment, so there's plenty of green leaf that can make its way in there, and that's not the end of the world, but it's absolutely going to restrict the water quality because of the decaying leaves and so forth. So if you're able to just grab a pool net, give it a little scoopy scoop on a regular basis, that would really help the pond. So to prepare the water from the fish, I've put some water ager in. That water ager's got to go in whenever you put new water in to stop chlorine and chloramone and so forth going in the water. I've added a little bit of KH powder, and I've added some GH salts, and that will prepare the water for the fish. So which means any time now, I should be able to put fish in this pond. So as far as feeding is concerned, I only want the fish fed only what they have to. So in summer, maybe 3 times a week. In winter, maybe once a week. And then I just want a little bit of food put in. So all the food is eaten in 30 seconds. And then over time, I just want the belly of the fish watched. And if it goes from the gill plate and the body starts going in, then whatever you're doing, you're not doing enough. Then if you've got a big fat belly, then whatever you're doing too much. But what I'd really be asking is that once every 3 months, just grab your phone, make a little video of the whole pond running, including the filters, and video any bits and pieces you might have, any water ages, fish foods, any equipment you've got, video all that for us, and then bring a water sample down to the shop, and then we can test the water and make sure that everything's going to plan. But you really want to be doing some sort of water change or servicing this pond every 3 months. And what is also very good is to use the water from the pond for watering the garden. So when I used to have a pond similar to this, I would just grab a 20-litre bucket out of the pond and throw it all over the garden, and I'd be doing that on a semi-regular basis, and that would mean that water's being removed. But you will be surprised how much water evaporates. And evaporation is a top-up, and that is not a water change. It's important that we are doing semi-regular water changes to avoid accumulants building up in our water. And the filter is, for now, I've just put a whole lot of filter wool in there, and the filter wool is going to be ideal for just cleaning out any particles or dirt in the water. There's also a whole bunch of mats in there as well. Now, what will happen is the water goes from the pond, the particles will get sucked out through the filter wool. Over a period of time, that filter will get really dirty. When it's really dirty, I'd recommend we just throw it out, and we look at putting some filter wool back in again to take the particles out of the water. Then the water is going to go over into our biological section, and we have a massive amount of marine pure in here, and this marine pure will work with parallel nitrifying and denitrifying bacteria and will break all the waste down. Then the water will go into that hole and go back down into the pond again. Now, what's really important is we don't want any of these medias cleaned with tap water. If we clean them, we want to pull them out of the pond. We want to clean them in water from the pond, because we want all the good bacteria to stay in there. And the good bacteria that stays in there is what breaks down the waste from the fish. So the only thing we want to be replacing is we want to be replacing this wool when it gets dirty. And then these mats will eventually deteriorate and will need replacing eventually. So this should be quite a low maintenance filter, but I will ask that on a semi-regular basis, at least every couple of weeks, come and check this filter wool and see how dirty it is. How dirty the filter wool will ultimately end up will depend on, number one, how many fish you've got in there, and how often leaves are rotting in the pond. So therefore, how much the fish are also fed. So if you have a lot of food going in, we expect this to get dirtier. If there's not as much food going in, we expect that to stay much cleaner. The other thing is there are various bacteria available, such as pristine, and that helps to break down a lot of the solid waste and helps to keep your filters nice and clean. So I've just done a little makeshift, try to hide the UV. So I don't want that turned on yet. Then the power goes up here, so all we just need to do is plug that in about a month or so, and that'll help keep the water nice and clear. He's ready for fish now. It's all running nicely. There's really no reason why we can't chuck some fish in. It's good not to feed for the first 2 days after you add new fish. And then never buy fish without bringing a water sample and a video down to the shop so we can check it out. And if in doubt, come down and see us with a water sample and a video and we can guide you. I want you to come down at least every 3 months just so we can keep track of what's going on. Now it's really important this filter is run 24/7. The other thing is there is a couple of fittings there, which every now and then if you open them up, then they will actually drain water out of the bottom of the filter, helping to flush the filter. Now I did do a test and send one of the marine pures down the pipe just to make sure that they don't clog the pipe up, and they don't. So We want to try and not let those marine pure balls go out of the pipe, but if they do, it doesn't really matter. They'll just be in the bottom of the pond where they'll still work.